Good evening and welcome to the Old Center Historic District Commission meeting. Prior to the start of the meeting, I would like to read the order from Governor Baker concerning public meetings conducted virtually. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Old Center Historic District Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by watching it on television on Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28, or by visiting www.northandovercam.org. So at this time, can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Kathy Sisker, I move to open the meeting.
Thank you.
Ryan Trender, second.
Thank you. Meeting is officially opened. So on the agenda, we had, first thing on the agenda we have is old business. Is there any old business that we need to take a look at? Okay.
I don't think there is, Harry. I think we're good.
Okay. Third thing on the agenda is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 117 Osgood Street. This application is for the potential of a 4,000 square foot new construction home located on a future subdivision of the lot located at 117 Osgood Street. The applicant is on the line. Kunal, do you want to walk us through your application?
Sure. Thanks, everyone, and appreciate everyone's time. Hope you can hear me okay. Harry, thank you for your time, too, and your guidance on this. I'm a real estate agent. I'm working with the occupants of 117 Osgood Street. They're looking to subdivide their lot for about half an acre and build a home, new home construction of up to 4,000 square feet that they would then sell. I've been in touch with the North Andover Planning Board. I've been talking to Paul Hutchins, who's been guiding me through this. It meets all the setback requirements. I've talked to him about how big we can build. He says as long as it meets the setback requirements, we can build up to 4,000 square feet. And he let me know that this is located in the historic district, and I would need, approval from this committee first before I move forward. So in order to do everything properly and appropriately, I've been contacting Harry. He's kind of guiding me through the process. And I just wanted to, see what questions there are, if you guys have anything from neighbors that have any concerns, and kind of go from there before I go to the planning board for subdivision.
Okay. So could you, in the shared drive, which the link is off of the agenda, there is a photo that you provided along with the application or a document called photos image 0-1 for those that are following along virtually as well as at home. There's a sketch rendering that you provided to commission. Could you walk us through, before we get into discussion and so forth, could you walk us through that particular rendering?
Sure. So the rendering shows if you're looking at the rendering, to the left where the proposed lot line, to the left of that is the existing building, and to the right of that is the proposed envelope for the proposed building, and within that is what we've identified as enough area to build up to 35 feet high to house up to 4,000 square foot home. This envelope meets all the setback requirements by the town, and also the 75% buildable area, after accounting for wetlands, et cetera. So that's what this rendering is.
So on this proposed subdivision, what are we talking about in terms of street footage? So I'm looking at where is the property line to the right of the structure, number 95 Osgood Street.
95 would be, hold on one second. I can't exactly see it in this.
Harry, this is Roger. I can't locate the sketch.
I can't either. It's Kathy Sisker, and I'm looking frantically here. I don't see any link to it at all.
Agreed. Yeah.
So are you in the folder? You're in the folder, the share folder.
Harry,
Well,
I'll send the link.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be
Hold on.
good, Ryan.
Just give me a second here. Okay, you should have it.
Let me know when everyone has it open, and I'll continue.
Yeah, the title of it is Photos-Image 0-1 JPEG.
Yeah, but this is Kathy Sisker. I have it.
Thank you.
This is Roger. I have it as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Are you guys looking at the drawing, right, that has a proposed lot line and the building envelope?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you look, it's kind of hard to see on here, but if you look essentially where it says Osgood Street, where the D is in Osgood, above that is the lot line, the ending lot line for 117, and that's where the neighboring lot line would begin.
Right. And in that envelope, the building envelope, what is your setbacks off that property line?
So from the front, it's 30 feet. From the right, it's 30, and from the side on the left, it's 20 feet.
Okay.
Just to clarify on that, I thought it was in that area. I thought it was 30 feet on the sides for both sides for that part of the town. Am I wrong on that?
If that's the case, we would move the proposed lot line further into 117 to make it adhere to that. I thought it was 20, but I'll double check.
Yeah, you might be right. It's what is that, R3 there?
Yeah.
You know?
It is an
Yeah,
R3.
Okay. I can look up the chart. I'll find it.
Yeah, if that's the case, then we'll move further into 117 to make sure it adheres to that.
Okay.
This is Leslie Frazier. In the drawing, there's the possible building envelope, and then around that is sort of a triangle shape. What does that mean? I assume the stepped rectangle is the building shape, but what's the triangle shape around it? What does that mean?
So the proposed building is the essentially the black line, and around that is the triangle. That's essentially the yard space, or whatever you want to call it, of the building.
Why is that different from the rest of the yard?
That's how far we've decided to go back. I mean, it goes out into the other areas, but further back is wetlands.
Okay.
This is Kim Barry. Is this going to be, so who is are y'all the contractor? Is that how you introduce yourself?
The contractor is, we also know the contractor who'd be doing this. It's Katie Construction, based out of Westwood.
So are you the owner?
I am representing the owner.
Okay, so my question is the owner an existing resident, and is this expected to be an owner occupied, or is this an investment property?
It would be an investment property. It will be sold.
So so this is someone who owns the land, who's gonna build a house but not live in it.
Correct. They live at 117 Osgood.
What was the Canton address on the application? Who was that?
That's me. That's my agent address.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No problem.
Yes, I had a question, Kathy Siska. Have you gone to do any of the permits yet, in particular the conservation, because of the closeness to the brook?
Yep. No, I have not, and I wanted to get blessings from the Historic Society before I go forward and do that. I'm kind of doing this in steps since we have time on our side. There's no rush for this, so I'm kind of getting each thing out of the way. So once I talk to you guys, I'll go to conservation, then to the planning board.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason why I asked is because there is a neighbor across the street from 117 Osgood, and she called me up. In the course of our conversation, she said to me that because they were neighbors, Dr. Wayne Passayan, I think I'm saying his name correctly, the previous owner, they were going for a walk. This is about 4 or 5 years ago, she said, and that there were stakes in the ground. And she said to him, "What are these for?" He said, "Well, conservation, I applied to, as you were doing, sir, subdivide the property." And even Dr. Passayan was interested in selling off another lot. And he got refused by conservation. So I'm thinking, and not sure how the rest of you feel, but before we go forward and spend, 2 or 3 Wednesdays on this, maybe Mr. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know your last name, that he should go for conservation first and see if he will get refused also, as Dr. Passayan was refused.
Well, can I jump in here, Kathy?
Yep.
So, yeah, this is a question of when I was contacted by Canal.
By who, Harry?
By the applicant, by Canal.
Okay.
Where the conversation is we don't have enough information in terms of the actual construction plans of this house to vote. What I did was agree to have a meeting in which we will have discussion on even the possibility of are we willing to have a new constructed house if the property was subdivided. Now, before the applicant goes forward to the other commissions and departments to obtain, a subdividable lot, there's costs that would be incurred in the whole process. And if this commission's feeling is that in terms of appropriateness, it's not willing to allow new construction under any circumstances, or if there are circumstances, what those restrictions may be, then we're giving some level of direction without a full vote as to provide guidance to the applicant in order to move forward. He would come back at a later date with plans if that was our overall consensus.
Well, I hear you, Harry, and if that is what we are, the direction you want us to go, I understand that you would like to get either a yes or a no for this gentleman to proceed. But once we get that, I don't think it's inappropriate for us to ask him to go to conservation right off the bat. I know conservation does their job very well. They are very strict about wetlands. And I know other people along Kachikwick Brook, which is the brook behind the house, that have been refused to even be allowed to take a tree down because it was too close to the brook.
Right.
So I understand, and I think, yeah, that's a good way to go. We decide yes or no. But quite honestly, I do believe that say we decide yes, then we should ask this gentleman to go to conservation, because if conservation says no, then that's the end of the whole project.
Correct, and that's fine. I don't mind. You know, I just want to know if the historic committee, if I get the other approvals from conservation, from planning board, et cetera, that this committee is also okay with it. That's where I am. If conservation says no, that's fine.
You don't mind going to conservation first if this committee decides to say yes to the new building?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
So this is Kim.
yes.
So would we decide our inclination, yes or no, based on the structure style itself? Like the two new houses on the other corner, weren't they required to be sort of in style of what else was already existing on the commons? And would we want to impose or expect the same for this project as part of our yes or no inclination?
Well, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. First of all, the intent is not to vote yes or no. The intent is to have discussion. We've opened up the motion, the application for the certificate of appropriateness. We're now going to open it up for discussion, first for the commission, and then for the public, which someone had mentioned earlier that we have sent out notices to the entire historic district, given the importance of adding new construction to the district. But it's merely to say, you know, it's to give the applicant an opportunity to hear the views and the discussion, and then for us to then ultimately probably continue the meeting and leave it open. And then it's up to the applicant whether the applicant would like to go further and pursue a subdivision and then come back to the commission or not. That's the current plan. So what I'd like to do is open it up for discussion and to get people's sense of, you know, what would be the impact to the district in that particular property and that site, and the relationship of that to the rest of the district. So that's what we have to have some discussion on.
Harry, this is Roger
Yeah.
Lawson. I'd like to, quick question. I'm looking at the sketch. I can't tell what the proposed setback is. I know the limits, if you will, are at the bottom, but I can't read that drawing. Is that, how many feet off the road are we talking?
He said 30.
30. Okay, maybe I missed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Harry, I did look up that zoning. It is 20 feet on the sides. R2 is 30 feet. So I just was confused on that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me start this by I think we have to go through this in some different pieces, okay? So Laurie had provided us with a link to the Michael E. Siegel house, okay? And I think prior to going into that conversation, what I'd like to know and I have not pulled the deed on this particular house, but Kunal, have you pulled the deed on this house?
I have.
Are there any restrictions within the deed?
No, there's nothing that I saw within the deed.
Okay, I mean, that would be an activity we would need to look at ourselves, but for now, let's assume that there were no deed restrictions. Okay, so when we look at the Michael E. Siegel house, which is the current house that's on 117 Osgood Street, that particular site is listed in Historic New England, and it is itself important and significant in its own right for its overall site layout and building configurations. Okay, specifically, the architectural and historical value and significance of the site and the buildings and the general design arrangement of features involved and their relationship to the surrounding area. And so there's language that was in there, and particularly about how the house was built to take advantage of a sloping terrain, making the house seem smaller and quainter from the street, which it does, because your eye actually goes to how that slope off to the right, along with the historic carriage house to the left. So even if we weren't building a new house next to the current house or between the 95 and 117, we have this other issue that says we've got a historically significant and architecturally valuable house that's on the district. So first we have to even discuss that piece of it. So why don't we, I want to open up just that piece of it right now, just how people feel about the rendering that was done by, Royal Barry Willis, who's a significant architect, and how he integrated the structure on the barn or the carriage house with that particular site. So what are people's feelings about that?
Harry, it's Kathy Siska. In chapter 40C, where it says historic districts, it says, in the case of new construction, the appropriateness of the size and shape of the building or the structure, both in relation to the land area upon which the building or structure is situated and to buildings and structures in the vicinity, meaning the neighborhood. So not only does this house have to fit in there, it also has to fit into the whole Old Center Historic District neighborhood. Now, I was on the commission when the two houses, 95 and 85, I think. I'm not sure about the number.
No, that's correct.
Right, okay. That took 18 months. We were, with George Sharinda, we were almost 18 months to 2 years on designing those houses. And the end result, which I think they fit very well into the district, the small details, the siding of the basement walls. I mean, this took a long period of time, and those two houses do fit as well as new construction can into the Old Center Historic District. So I just wanted to say to my colleagues on the commission, I mean, we have to take this very seriously, not only fitting next to this, what is it? Royal Barry Wills. I'm sorry, Harry. Barry Wills House.
Royal Barry.
I got it.
Wills,
there we go. Not only does it have to fit in close proximity to that historic house that is on the National Register, it also has a dual problem of having to fit into the Old Center Historic District. And that's kind of a tough order, even before we get to the permits. So just that information to my fellow colleagues that this is a high level of design that would need to be met before I would think before we approved of the house.
Yeah, and I hear you, and I one of the things, and I sat on that commission as well during that period.
That's right, you were, Harry. Sorry.
As did Leslie and several other people.
Yep.
One of the challenges here, though, okay, is, and I don't know if you recall, Kathy, but at that period of time, when those two houses were proposed, there were several things that actually took place. First of all, previous construction on the two homes were issued building permits prior to OCHDC review, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Right. So therefore, there was some degree of activity, unfortunately, that had already taken place, and we had to do a retrospective assessment
Right.
and look at that. At that time, we did consult several architects that were,
Historic architects, as I remember, yes.
yeah, one from Concord,
Yep.
and so forth. What ended up, the consensus of that, though, was that two houses on that corner would anchor the corner. Introduction now of a third house in a row would aid, demean, in my opinion, the significance of the house on 117, but it would also begin to sort of fragment more the district between the housing cluster around the common and the houses now on going down Osgood Street, where the first burial ground, the old Osgood house, the Parsons Barnard house, the Phillips house. So we would be creating now a cluster of new construction between those two. So we're going to lose, in some ways, the congruency of the historic properties in the continuation. That's my fear. I do have a significant concern about that fragmentation.
Well, I do too, and that's why I said this is a very high bar indeed, that this gentleman would have to design or have designed a house that fits in seamlessly to the, quote, new construction, 95 and 85 Osgood Street, plus marry to the I'm always getting this wrong, the Royal Barry Wills house, however you say that. I mean, which was built in 1962, I believe.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that it's going to be a difficult task, and the bar is very, very high. And I also agree with you that it keeps cutting into the historic district, and now this will be the third house in a row. And I do agree with you. It's going to be difficult, and I'm not sure that I would support the idea.
Okay.
This is
All
Mike.
right. Yes, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I apologize for being late. My thoughts are that the two houses that were squeezed in on the corner are stains on the historic district to begin with, and we did as best a job as we could to force them to create a design that was similar to the houses on Andover Street, but they still came out looking very low end, in my opinion, and I don't think that they are adding anything to it. So I agree with both you and Kathy on your points about the very high bar that's going to have to be made to make any house that would be squeezed in there to be appropriate. And it would, in my opinion, it would have to be better than those two on the corner, as far as detail and mixing in with the Lord Barry Wills design and the colonial design on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Harry, it's Leslie Frazier. I have a continuation of that. The walls that are there, the stone walls, the one that would right in front of this new property, and there's a mate to it on the other side, right in front of the carriage house.
Mm-hmm.
Those two walls, to me, frame the house and more than the house, the Royal Barry Wills house, more than that, the land, and shows the extent of that property when it was a true estate. The house that's there now is certainly a statement and an estate in itself. The land supports that. Taking away that detracts from that, and we lost the two sections of that wall on the right because of the two new houses. I think they were actually torn down before we even got whiff of the two houses coming in. And so I do not want to lose this section, but I also think that they serve as markers to that land and the extent of it and the significance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. Who's next?
Barry, Roger Lawson here.
Yes, Roger.
Yes, so I'm also concerned with trying to fit in another home between the two most recent homes and the Wills home. That is a delicate piece of property, and it's going to take a really unique design of a house to fit in there properly. And without even seeing a design, I'm having a hard time envisioning having a house there. So I certainly would need to see drawings of a proposed home. I just I'm very uncomfortable right now with just plopping a home in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say this, based on what the applicant is proposing, right? A 35-foot height, we, in the two houses on the corner, I think we put a 32-foot height restriction. I think the overall square footage was somewhere between 36 and 3,800 square feet. So you can envision a third, not saying the style of the house, but just looking at, because this is an important piece that you're bringing up, Roger, which would be the height and the massing of the structure, right? I mean, across the street, we've got, some, ranches, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
correct.
Smaller houses, one with an expanded roof line. But what's being proposed is currently, without looking at the details of the structure, a third house in similar height and mass that the other two have.
Understood. Yeah. Yep.
That's what's currently on the table.
Yeah.
Which then what does that do? That crowds then the Michael Siegel house, right? Because you're going to be right up against that, that oval driveway, and it's going to take away from it. We're cutting into it for the sake of what, though? That's what I don't understand how, in my mind, I would have to be convinced of how this is going to benefit and enhance the historic district. I mean, I don't, how is this bringing value to the district? We would have to have Ryan also take a look at, what does that do to the valuations of the other houses, the older houses, So I don't know. Those are some of the things I'm struggling with in terms of whether it's appropriate to even put another structure there. I'm struggling with that.
Hey, Harry. This is Kunal Patel. I've listened to everyone's concerns and, all that. And, it's absolutely a very important decision. I completely understand your concerns and, the other homes that have been built and crowding out and taking away from the unique architecture of 117 Osgood. And what I'm proposing is, this is not for you guys. I don't want, a definite yes or no today, but, give us an opportunity to come up with some, good architectural designs. I have some good contacts that are familiar with, kind of what you're looking for. I'm looking at 95 Osgood right now. And, obviously, the owner of 117 doesn't want an eyesore next to him as a neighbor also. So what I'm proposing is let me come up with some good designs, kind of give you a much better, clearer idea of how this would look, before you guys give a yes or no. And if it's a no at the end of that, that's fine with us. We're not gonna argue or fight. I just want to make
No.
sure you guys get to see everything properly and appropriately before making a decision.
Yeah, that's fine. Kunal, that is something you can do. We opened up this meeting so that you can just kind of get a sense of where people currently are at, and then it's up to you if to what degree you want to make an investment in architectural renderings, or going forward with the other commissions and so forth. At least it gives you a sense of what you're going to be up against, and I don't plan on taking a vote. I plan on leaving the meeting open with a continuation. And then, if you choose to come back, that's fine. If you don't, we can always, end the meeting. But I'd like to hear from some of the other commission members so you get a full picture of this. And then I want to open it up to the public for any comments that are out there from the public. So I haven't heard from Laurie. I haven't heard from Marty. So if you guys want to.
Harry, it's Ryan. I also haven't spoke yet too, so I'll
You
jump in
haven't,
here.
Ryan. I'm sorry. Yes, and Ryan.
No, it's okay. Since you just brought me in earlier about some things.
Yes.
To answer your question about the values, it's always hard to tell, what a new construction is going to do to values of neighborhoods. However, historically, if the property is done nicely to fit the neighborhood, and it goes along with the architecture, historically it does add value to the neighborhood. And these guys, they just bought this house next door for a little over $1 million, I think about a year ago. So that's not a small chunk of change by any means. So as the petitioner mentioned, they're going to want to do something that's going to add value to their property. And then you have the two other new constructions that obviously one just sold a couple of years ago. I forget the number it sold for, but I think it was high up there, maybe in the 8th. So I think they're going to want to do something that's going to add value to the house, to that neighborhood. The other side of it too, I definitely feel everybody's concerns, and I'm with you there. I always like to maybe try and think outside the box and add, okay, what would somebody say to maybe be from the other side of the perspective, right? So, just looking at that part of the historic district, you have the ranch across the street, which no historic value there that I'm aware of. You have the Cape, I think, next to that. I think it's the Yellow Cape. Again, no historic value that I'm aware of there. And then you have the one in the corner. Again, no historic value. Anybody in the group can correct me on that if I'm wrong. I don't hear anybody correcting me, so I think I'm pretty good there. So, I mean, there's the argument there that you don't have any historic value on that side. Then obviously, Harry, you have your house that's down the street there, which has major historic value. But just in this little chunk here. And then my other question, Harry, be this house at 117, you said it's on the National Register, or just the Carriage house is on the National Register?
Well, it's
The house.
Yeah, go ahead.
The house itself is, because it is in the collection of the gentleman who designed all the Royal Barry Wills houses. It is on the National Register. In that collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would caution Ryan. So, this is one of the discussions actually that came up during the evaluation period for those other two houses on the corner. Yes, the ranches are now not what would one consider, as we look at the age of the district, as being some of the oldest, right? But we do have several periods within the district, right? So around the common, we have more of the early 1800s. We've got the Parson Bonnet, which is on the cusp of a first period saltbox home. We've got homes early 1800s on Academy Lane, one on 17. Yeah, those are the sort of the classic earmarks of the district. But the ranches themselves now, even 10 years ago, were approaching it captures a period in time,
Right.
a different
I
period,
agree.
1950s maybe, but it's a period of time. So we have
Right.
to take those architectural things, just like the house on 117, in its own domain, if you will,
Yep.
in my mind. So yeah, I mean, we've got different things going on that all make up the preservation and the congruency. It's the congruency of having a continuum,
Mm-hmm.
So
No, I'm in agreement. I guess with you guys with that. I was just trying to bring up the opposing point of view. I guess.
Yep.
Just I'm definitely in agreement that I struggle with this one with adding another house there. Surely the previous comments were made already. The other side of it is it meets all zoning requirements, which I struggle with as well. So in theory, if this was another part of town, they could just build it. But again, this is a special part of town. So I think it would be nice to see what they want to build. I think that would help my decision anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely understand. And you guys went through that process with my father on those other two. And I know that was like a long, drawn-out process because of the whole big, long thing. I wish I could have been in a room to understand that side of it. But I definitely understand your guys' concern and would lean towards that direction.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your input. Laurie?
I don't know, can you hear me, Harry?
I can.
Okay. I agree with Leslie that those stone walls, all that's left of the Kearney estate, which is responsible for the big carriage house, they're really an important feature of that property, and I'd hate to see them go. And I'm struggling too with what you could put in there that would fit both the Royalberry Wills and the things that were built on the other side. And Kathy's right. We struggled. Anything that comes in there is liable to run into the same problems that we had with the two houses on the corner. We spent a long time trying to get that right. So I have my doubts. That's my contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Harry, it's Kathy Sisker. I just would like to ask the developer just one question. I mean, we haven't even been told whether this new house is supposed to share the driveway with 117, or if he plans on taking down the historic walls. I mean, we have no knowledge of that.
Nope, and that's why we're on this call. That wall sounds like it's important. We would use a similar driveway and split off if that was the case. We're willing to work around the guidance that we're getting today.
Well, not to be blunt, but it's one thing to say it. We need to see a drawing, what you stand behind, what you say, this is what you want to do, what you want to build. We really can't make a decision with, stuff in the sky. And this is too valuable a property to do that. We really need to see concrete drawings. This is what you're want to do. This is how you're going to do it. The wall will be preserved. The wall will not be preserved. The height will not be higher than the houses 95 and 85. The land won't look like it's all smashed together like an apple pie that fell on the floor. I mean, this is a lot to be discussed and to talk about, and we really have nothing too much to go on.
Right, and this is the guidance I'm getting now, right? So I'm taking all this into account, and the next time we speak, I will have all those answers for you.
Yeah, this is just an initial conversation. That's all. We're just trying to get an initial direction or not in terms of what may or may not work. All right. I haven't heard from Laurie.
Hi, Harry. Yeah. So, I mean, I will second a lot of what everyone else has said. Kathy specifically mentioned, chapter 40C. I think it was section 7. And that was kind of the reason why I brought attention to the Royal Barry Wills documents from Historic New England. Because, as she said, you know, we consider a new building in relation to the land area.
Mhm.
And the point of, you know, the architect actually mentioned that, you know, he used the land to create a certain image of the actual building, to make it quaint, to make it look quaint and smaller. And I would have a hard time picturing any building that would not take away from that intention. So that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I struggle with that myself. I do. I mean, I even try to, I try to go to an extreme in vision of saying, you know, even if an 1812 or 1840s kit house was put there, you know, in rebuilt on that site, how would I feel? I'm struggling seeing any type of a house there. That's my problem. But you know, I'm going to open it up now to the public, so that anyone who's listening can email. I did receive one email from a resident in the district. I'll read the email for the record. Thank you for your notice regarding the proposed subdivision of 117 Osgood Street and the construction of a new 4,000 square foot house. Like many people, I have long admired that classic Royal Barry Willis house. Your notice prompted me to do some research on the house, a la the Siegel house. Historic New England wrote that the Siegel house, and in quotations, adapts the irregular profile of the connected farmhouse, traditionally the result of connecting the house, ells, barn, and outbuildings into one long building. I would suspect that Royal Barry Willis carefully considered the location of the house in relation to the large carriage house and the open space. Historic New England writes the house is, under quotes, built to take advantage of a sloping terrain, making the house seem smaller and quainter from the street. I suspect your purview will be on constructing a new home on the sloping terrain and the historical and architectural value and significance of the site. OCHDC bylaws and the relation of a new structure to the surrounding area. I look forward to learning more. So that was one comment that we have received. I have not received any additional comments as of now. So that's all that I have for the discussion.
Harry, it's Ryan. Can I ask one more quick question here?
You could.
So with it being on a nationally registered historic home, I just looked up the deed real quick at the Lawrence deeds. There isn't any deed restriction there, but I've sold some of these houses before, and there's definite restrictions as to what they can do with the property and such. So I think it's important that there's some documentation brought forth regarding to this house, you know, being it recorded nationally on the historical rolls, because I'd be surprised if this can even be happening on that property if it's recorded for the National Registry, you know?
Harry,
Yes.
this is Kim. So I've done some work with the register listings with another group that I'm involved in, and I would just say that a property that's listed on the National Register, there's no real restrictions to what might be done to it or around it or related to it, but it may actually end up with it being removed from the register if it no longer qualifies. So That's just a distinction. The register could disqualify a property if too many changes are made that take away from the historic relevance. So that's sort of the official rule on that, because I've done a lot of that with another group.
Thank you for sharing that.
Harry, it's Leslie. I'm wondering if the slope of the lot we're talking about is to the same extent as the large house. As you know, I lived at 135 Academy Road for 15 years, and that one was built in a similar fashion. If you look at it from Academy Road, it looks like a little sort of English cottage, and then it all goes down in the back, and then is a full several stories. But from the front, it's very unobtrusive, and that's what it sounds like the Royal Barry Wills plan was trying to do. If the land for this site is on a similar slope, then I would think having a house, if there's a house coming at all, having a house with a similar idea, that it would go down in the back and be less obtrusive from the street. To have a block of 3 of those houses, like 95 and 85, I think would be a sin. But something more creative with a very low profile on the street and mostly down below might not be so offensive. But I don't know how the land slopes there, if it's quite as dramatic as it is on the behind the larger house.
Okay. So Kunal, you've heard the discussion by the commission. Is there anything further that you would like to comment on?
No, I mean, I appreciate everyone's time. I've taken a lot of notes. I'm going to go back to the homeowner and see kind of how they want to proceed. And I'm also going to contact the Conservation Committee to see if I can get some historical perspective from them from the previous attempt, so I can kind of tackle that as well. And then, Harry, if the homeowner wants to, continue this, I might set up a call with you, and we'll go over kind of the checklist that I've put together and have all that in order for, a future meeting.
Okay, so we're going to make a motion for a continuance on this. If you come back, then we will schedule another meeting. Can I have a motion for a continuance on this application?
I make a motion that we do a continuance for this application.
Thank you, Leslie.
And Harry, I'd be more than happy to second that. This is Roger.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Let me just write that down. Writing. Okay, so that completes the agenda item for the application. I'm going to move to the next agenda item for new business. Is there any new business that we would like to discuss tonight?
This is Kathy Sisker, and maybe this isn't new business to you, Harry, but it's kind of new to me.
Yes.
The Grange, the building across on Great Pond Road from the North Parish Church.
Yep.
They are going to put 3 condos in there.
Yep.
And I didn't know if she had contacted you. Her name is Lainey Finberry.
I know.
And I gave her your email, and I don't know if she followed through.
No, she did not. She did not follow through, and I sent her an email and copied Paul Hutchinson to make her aware that some of the proposals, and actually I want to thank Ryan, because Ryan brought it to my attention and sent me a link to all of the documents that I think Ryan was in front of the zoning board. So in her proposal, she has, and I don't know if that's what she's planning on doing, but that was the purpose of my email, to understand her intent and the bylaws of the old center. But there was, in the plan was expansion of parking,
Yep.
which
Yep.
needs to get a historic district, and I mentioned that in the email. In addition to that, I did see in the renderings that they were proposing putting up some retaining walls and putting up some, sort of, I don't want to say maybe wooden guardrails or some sort of, guardrails on the left, because they wanted to expand that portion of it and the parking on the left side of the Grange, and then in addition in the back side of the Grange. So I tried to initiate a conversation through email, and I have gotten no response.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I do believe I saw on the planning board that this is being brought up for a discussion at the next planning board meeting. And I thought, my goodness, I'm sure Harry would have sent something to us. He agrees with this, or we don't have to discuss it or whatever. But
no, we have
I'm
to
very
discuss it.
surprised that this woman hasn't contacted you. I really am.
I'll take an action item, Kathy. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
I'm sure you need more things on your plate, right, Harry? Sorry.
No. No, it's an important piece of the anchors the corner of the district. I'll follow up with Paul. I know Bernadette's on the call as well.
Yes, yes.
But let me, Paul's pretty responsive, and let me see what if Paul could help us out here and
Okay.
And ensure that prior to issuing any building permits that that she's aware that she needs to get sort of a review through our process and get a certificate of appropriateness.
Harry, I just found it. It's 3 Great Pond Road, Elaine Finberry, application for a site review special permit. So this is on the next planning board, and she hasn't contacted you, which is rather unfortunate, to say the least.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Okay. Any other new business? Also,
Harry, just in relation to what Kathy was just saying, is that something we should attend? The planning board? Or some of us, or?
well, I mean, we could probably attend that virtually as well.
Kathy, do you know when it is?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. No. You know what? This was yesterday, Tuesday, January 19th.
Ah.
It was yesterday. I get this because I subscribe to all agendas, and I always look at the planning board. I don't know what the result was, Leslie.
Okay.
But it's just that I've worked with this woman before many times, and she's always been very good about, following the rules and, all that type of stuff. So, I mean, I've worked with her many times on the Davis and Ferber building, tax credits and all that for, all that downtown. And I'm very surprised. She called me and said, do I need to speak to you in an email? And I said, no, Harry Asnoyan. And I gave her Harry's email. And she said, thanks a lot. And that was the end of it. So.
Well, let me. I'll try reaching out to Paul and see what Paul's thoughts are on it, and we'll go from there. Which actually, Kathy, I've been, given my sort of, along with everybody else, sort of spending more time at home working virtually. And walking around the whole center, the level of non-compliance in the old center is very high, very high. And I know in the share folder for this particular project or certificate. I put in a breakdown of the entire district, and thanks to Bernadette provided the Excel spreadsheet of the properties, and I just kind of helped categorize them in a way that we could work with it. I think we need to, or what I would like to see, and given this is the public meeting, I would like to add several columns to that Excel spreadsheet, and I can do that and then send it out. And what I'd like for us to do is to basically have 3 columns. And, you know, one column would be a significant non-compliance, one that I would consider to be a non-compliance that would be something that would warrant us to have to enforce change. Okay. An example of something like that would be on 95 Osgood Street, in which they swapped out the original colonial door and they put an arts and crafts store in there. And they did that this past spring. Okay, now obviously they probably had a contractor. I'm assuming that there was no building permit issued for that, because I know
Right.
Right. And so they went ahead and they just did that. Okay. That impacts the whole look of that building, by the way. Okay. I think we could have significant nonconformances, moderate nonconformances, and then minor. Minor would be something that I would consider to be something, as an example, the society has put across the way there a bench into the open space of the field that belongs to the Parsons Barnett House. Okay. That bench can be removed, or they could apply for a certificate of appropriateness, you know, modifications to the stone wall. That's a structure that's been changed, you know.
Right.
There's billboards. There's the information board next to the barn of the society, which, you know, they were only putting it up temporarily for 90 days to see how they liked it, and then now it's permanent. It goes on and on and on. I mean, you look at the trustees of reservation. You know, they put gates up on Academy Road on the land. You know, they've put information. I'm not saying that all of these have to be not allowed. I'm saying they have not gone through our process. They have not gone through the process. And literally, we probably could go through almost the entire district and have a really significant list. And I want to do that. I want to get the list. I want us to meet on the list in a public meeting. I want us to determine which, if any of those, require action. Maybe some of those require that the owners have to reapply or apply for a certificate of appropriateness, and then whatever the outcome is of that, then they're going to have to abide by that. I just think it's not helping the preservation of the historic district in a manner that was set out by the town, and when the town voted to preserve this particular area. That's my feeling.
Harry, this is Mike. I know you had talked to somebody over at the Stevens Coolidge. I noticed in the last day or so that there seems to be a lot more activity on that field across from the small cottage on Andover Street that raised the issue of them putting in some kind of a maintenance field. Do you know if we are all okay with the use of that property, or do we need to continue with the formation of a group to contact them?
Is this the property on the Chestnut Street side or on the other side?
On the other side, next to the behind and next to the brick double house. They have.
Well, I
green
am aware that at one point they had intent of putting in a sort of, if you've seen them, the landscape concrete bins, like a slab with concrete walls, in order to store their materials, whether it be mulch or loam or whatever they're going to put there. But I might tell them that, and they're aware that would require our review. There's a list of things that would require our review.
Yeah, I think the time is right for approaching them again, because they have those green protective straw tubes all around that side lot right now. They're fairly bright colored. That's what brought my attention to it. And the field seems to be much more cleared away. So piles of brush and so on. So it looks like they're going to be doing something.
Okay. Well, I can certainly follow up with an email to Catherine, who is the director, and Elizabeth, who's in charge of the landscaping. Although Elizabeth does not have, who applied for us for the uplighting, she's not on that particular property. She's on the main campus. But she's aware, and she does help communicate that. But there are several. There's the shed that they have moved onto within the setback of the district, and I asked how long that shed was going to stay there. So there are several things that they have on the docket. So
I'd be glad to help if you want.
All right, that would be good. But
Harry, I'm happy to help too. This is Ryan.
All right, thank you, guys. I just write that down. Okay.
Harry, I thought that your spreadsheet was a great start, and I like these other ideas adding to it to make it as useful as possible. But I like what you've done already.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have to, I think it'll be a vehicle for us to have some of those, as Kathy mentioned. I did let the selectmen know that, and it's a problem throughout the town and other towns is with having to do virtual meetings, it's not helping any either. But the ability to, have cross communication, it's a real challenge. The people will make decisions sort of in vacuums of their own commissions and not, solicit the input of sort of the impact of other commissions or committees that need to be involved. So it's getting better. People are trying to do that, but it doesn't flow freely yet, and so that always offers a challenge. So, but yeah, I think we need to. I think we need to take an inventory, and then the signage on the North Parish Church continues to be in violation. On a facade that, one of the most iconic buildings in the town that gets photographed. I've heard people have tried to Photoshop out some of the signage after taking the photos. It's just, it's little things that add up and creates big changes. As long as they keep piling up, it just takes away rather than bringing it together. And one of the other things that we have to work on is updating our district map. It has not been updated, meaning it's been updated by Bernadette, but officially it's not been updated to all the changes that were done as a result of the upgrades to the common, i.e. the Rotary hasn't been included, which impacts us. It impacts us because there has been road changes, right? In terms of road configuration, dimensions when the state came in. And if as all of you know, the setbacks to the property are measured off the center line of the street. So when we talk about a 200 or 400 foot setback for the district, it's taken off the center line of the street. Mm-hmm. So it is important that we evaluate that, we look at that. I would also, in that same vein, recommend that we take a look at that, because we'll have to bring it in front of town meeting to amend. But let's look at the whole thing and then say, should we, and I won't mention any names, but several residents have made suggestions, and it's something we would have to discuss to perhaps take a look at saying, should we be looking at it differently? I mean, in 1987, when this map was drawn, things were different in the district, so do we take rather than taking the center line from the road, do we just make it a little easier and say whatever the property lot is, we're going to include the whole property lot? That's just one idea. Or do we expand in some areas the 200 feet to a greater distance? All things that should be considered. I mean, periodically we should be reviewing, I mean, even 40C itself, which is sort of the mother tier of our bylaws, right? Those have been updated. The state has updated 40C, and here we are, almost 40, 50 years later, from when this originally was done in the 70s to we're still using the same bylaw. So I think it is time to look at that, to make it work easier and more efficiently for everybody who lives in the district. So that's my thought. But.
And Harry, this is Mike. As we're just thinking about all the work that was done around the old center in the roadway project and the lighting, they've since changed all of the bulbs in every one of the high street lights to be incredibly bright. And that, I think, is, I don't know whether that falls under our jurisdiction or not, but I don't think that was considered at all. And I think there might be a discussion that we should have about that.
Well, it was considered. It wasn't considered when they made the change, Mike. But it was considered initially when it was proposed, and we did have a say initially when it was proposed for those members like Kathy and Leslie who were on the commission, and Marty. Marty knows as well, because the argument that they gave us was they increased the number of lampposts as what was there previously, because they lowered the height.
Since they put them in, the bulbs were much lower in wattage when they put those new ones in, and now they've gone in to save money to put in the high intensity, much cheaper, lower wattage bulbs that have lit up this whole area all the way wherever they got them. They're bringing out twice the amount of light that used to be in the new structures that they put in.
Exactly. I fully understand what you're saying. I mean, you know? I mean, it's like daytime even at nighttime, you know, especially in my house too.
And I was thinking if they've gone ahead and done that, and we went to such trouble to make sure that those light posts were somewhat historic in nature, maybe with the bright light that they need to change the actual bulb part of it so it doesn't reflect out so much.
Yeah.
More down.
Well, I think that we should, you know, I think we could schedule, if people have a tolerance for it, we could actually, you know, meet with the head of the DPW and have a conversation about whatever concerns we have too, Mike, within the district. You know, I mean, the signage is crazy. I mean, it's so there's several things we probably could have a conversation with the head of DPW for. So I think, yeah, and maybe I have a copy of the original plans from when they did that work and what we approved. Maybe I can see if I can pull those out and see what the wattage was on those lamps originally.
And if we're going that direction, and we do have jurisdiction over the types of light bulbs that are used in the historic district, I think we should try to minimize the number of those blue, bright white lights and try to restrict that to a degree if that's a possibility and if everybody agrees.
Yeah, the originals, do you remember the originals were more an orange color? They were a lower light emittance. They were more orange and lower light. And but I remember that DPW's argument was that because they increased the number significantly. Like, I mean, just as an example, you know, like from, you know, where my house is on Osgood Street, I went to Mass Ave, there was only probably one lamppost, one illumination lamp. And now we have probably three. And the argument that they gave was because they were lowering where the height was, they had to put more. So, but yeah, I think it's worth looking at. So
Harry, if we talk to them about that, we should also bring up the fact that the paint is coming off those nice black lampposts, so that all it's showing is this gray, almost stone look, and whether that can be repaired by the town or they have to get somebody else in to fix it. They're looking really shabby.
Yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all chipping.
Yeah, I know, especially in the corner of Mass Ave and
Right.
Osgood Street. That's
Right.
hardly any paint there at all.
I think the snow plows are what chips the paint off gradually, from what I've seen.
What is it, Laurie, that takes it off?
I think it's the snow plows. When they plow, they kind of push a lot of the snow right into that area, and I think they hit it. And same with you know, taking out some of the granite siding for the street and the brick side, crosswalks. Yeah.
I also think there's about 200 dogs walking on the common.
Yes. I was thinking the very same thing. Yes.
And a lot of fun.
So yeah, I would agree. You know, however they would like to rectify that, either repair or replace. You know, but yeah, there should be a little bit of budget built in to help with some of that maintenance of the district. Is there anything else? Are we good?
If we're putting anything on the list, maybe the speed limit might be something to consider as well.
But that's not DPW. That'll be the chief will have to help us with that.
Yeah, because I don't know, everybody knows that the speed limit in one direction could be completely different from the speed in the other direction on the same street.
Yeah.
Which is startling for pedestrians.
Yep. Yeah. So, I think that's all I have for now. I'm gonna have to speak with Bernadette. I know she's on the line, but we'll have to get a little bit more direction because now with the new open meeting law that's in effect, our ability to meet offline is really limited. So I, and I did talk with the town, and what we could do is we could do a legal notice and open up a meeting for these sorts of activities for us to discuss, and do it in the same fashion in an open forum, and bring each of us bringing together, for example, if we took the Excel spreadsheet, we each individually walked around and then had a meeting on it, and then talked about it, and then came up with a summary list. We can do it that way, I think. But I need a little more guidance. It's a little more stricter now than it has been in the past, in terms of how we operate. It would have been great if we could just, meet offline and do that, but we can't do that. So, but let me get a little more guidance on that, in terms of the best way to do it. And then I'll send out an email, and then we can move some of this stuff forward. Because I really would like to start in on the bylaws. I would. And I don't know the best way for us to move that forward. So let me talk to. I might talk to Andrew about that. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Kim. Check and see if they let you. So one thing I've been able to do with one of my groups is, if people do like homework or, put together whatever inputs, if they just unicast you and you collect them, I think that doesn't violate open meeting. I think it's if you email everybody around and you're not supposed to discuss that way. But I think if someone is like yourself as chair is unicast with input, see if they're okay with that, because I'm aware that that's been okayed in other instances.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. So, all right. If we don't have anything else at this point, we need to have a motion for adjourning.
I'll move to a motion to adjourn the meeting. This is Mike.
Yeah.
Leslie, I second it.
Thank you, Leslie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Well, thank you all for attending, and I'll keep everybody posted via email.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you,
Thank
Harry.
you.
Sounds good, Harry. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.